Second pick we know is going to be a quarterback, barring a shocking turn of events. Second overall pick will be a QB. But what are the Texans doing at 12? What's the most likely scenario with what Nick Caserio does there?
I feel like the most likely scenario is sticking and picking. But there is an opportunity and there is an idea that they should entertain a trade up if a certain player is available. And I would feel like the spot you would need to get to and the team that you would have already had some conversations with would be the Chicago Bears. You get to 9 and you get a certain player. So if a player starts to slip that you feel like is just, you got to have this guy now that he's within striking distance. Yeah, move from 12 to 9. And certainly moving down is a incredible opportunity, but you got to have the right player there to move down. Like, I'm not just moving down to move down. Like, I would think a quarterback would need to slip and somebody need to be coming up for that QB to really get a good, worthwhile move down.
All right, let me unpack that. I'm putting you in Nick Caserio's vest right now, so you're calling the shots. It is indeed. With Nick's or Cody's?
Well, if Cody was wearing Nick's vest, it wouldn't fit. So I'm assuming it's a big vet. Yeah.
Fat guy in a little vest.
Kind of like that.
Yeah.
Caserio's been pumping some iron a little bit. It's chest day.
Him and Laramie Tunsil work out and negotiate deals together.
That's how it works. If you're Nick Caserio, which players are you moving up for? You said you'd be willing to move up a couple of spots, maybe to 9. Obviously, you'd have to give something up of value to make that happen. But which players that could potentially slide would you be willing to make the call to go get?
It's tough because I would assume that the Bears would have interest in this player at 9, so you'd have to make it worth their time. But if Tyree Wilson, the defensive end from Texas Tech, starts to slip and he's there at 9, that is a guy that it feels like if DeMeco Ryans gets to coach him, he turns into just a really nasty player for the Houston Texans. Now, 12-3, the Bears like the guy. You got to get them to move off of that pick. It may cost you some of those mid-round selections. You know, you got some compensation picks back there. I mean, I'm thinking you're probably using one of your third-round picks and probably some of those sixth-round picks to sort of sweeten the deal up for the Bears to get them to move off of that. But Tyree Wilson is the name that if he's there at 9, I'm calling Chicago. Nick Caserio's already had a couple conversations with Chicago, we believe, about number 1. So you got a little relationship with Ryan Poles. Let's dip back into the well here and see what kind of relationship you got and see if you can get Tyree Wilson.
What about Jalen Carter? That's the intriguing name for me. I mean, Will Anderson, if he falls to like 7, I'm calling and moving up there.
Yeah,
don't think that's going to happen.
Right, me too.
I would hope Carter just falls to you at pick 12.
Okay. So that's what I wonder. Like, if he's there, like Philly at 10, maybe they trade down a little bit. Tennessee at 11. I mean, would you move up a couple of spots to go get Jalen Carter if he starts to slide because of the off-the-field stuff?
Real unique spot to put yourself in because the actions, we talk about it a lot, the actions are going to have to get explained very quickly by words on exactly why you feel comfortable with this guy, what, the pro day didn't bother you. We talk about it. Hey, they don't care about pro days. That guy had a really bad pro day. Not finishing your pro day, showing up fatter than they thought you were going to be, and being out of breath during the middle of the pro day, like that's a really bad pro day, okay? Like guys can have bad combines and redeem themselves at pro day. Orlando Brown did it a few years ago from Oklahoma. But most guys don't have the inverse, where they have a combine where you're like, oh, okay, all right, and then they have a bad pro day. Like that's like the action is you feel like there's nothing there from an off-the-field perspective.
Well, he also had no combine because he got arrested.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't even say, well, we could fall back on the combine. He didn't do anything at the combine because he got arrested. I'm not trading up for that guy. I think the optics look terrible. I don't think you could take that risk. If he's there at 12, you could argue the talent's too good to pass up, but there's still a big risk in that. I would avoid Jalen Carter if I'm the Texans.
I have a real serious conversation about it if he's there at 12, but I can't move up for him.
Okay.
I have a player in mind for a just 12 trade the 12th overall pick for a player.
Oh, like a player who's already in the league?
Like a player who's already in the league. A player who's already in the league, a player who's at a position of need, and an organization that is overcommitted along the defensive line.
Okay.
If I was Nick Caserio, I'd call Washington, and I'd see if they do the 12th overall pick for Chase Young. Now, Chase Young has had some injury concerns, but when playing, dynamic, freak athlete. DeMeco Ryans coached some guys in San Francisco that had some trouble staying on the field. And then when they finally stayed on the field, they were monsters. Eric Armstead is one that comes to mind. So, to me, I'd call about Chase Young. That's your starting defensive end for the next 2 seasons. And, yes, you got to make a decision on that fifth-year option for him. It's an obvious yes. You give him that opportunity for the next 2 seasons to really just ball out for you. D'Amico coaches up a former elite talent. Washington, why would they do this, Cody, if he's really good? Well, they've spent $1 gazillion on their defensive tackles in Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen. And then they also have another pass rusher coming up next year that they've got to think about, Montez Sweat. So they have got a lot of defensive linemen. They ultimately are not going to keep all of them. And if you're Washington, it gives you 2 selections right there outside the teens at 12 and in the teens. Now all of a sudden you can have a conversation about a quarterback and trading up.
I don't hate that. I just don't think they're going to do that. One, I don't know if 12th would be enough to get Chase Young. Washington might be like, we took this guy 2nd overall. When he's right, he's one of the best defensive players in the NFL. We want more than just 1 first-round pick for the guy. Why not just stick and pick? Take Jackson Smith and Jigba. Take the best wide receiver in the draft class at 12 and pair him up with the quarterback you're going with at 2. That's what I would do. Give me the best wide receiver available at 12. You might be the team that takes the first wide receiver off the board. Go for it.
You're cool with that now?
I'm on board with a receiver.
Okay.
I think I've always been on board with a receiver.
Yeah, there was a stretch, and look, we all have changed our minds a number of times over the last couple of weeks where you felt like 12 might have been too rich. Like, if you trade down and you could get JSN, then do that. But at 12, you'd make that call?
Well, when I suggested that, you were like, well, if you love a guy, just take him.
Sure.
So if I'm going to operate under that premise, then yeah, I think my dream scenario would be you trade back at 12 and you still end up with JSN, let's say. But under this exercise, I'm sticking and picking, and I'm going to take the best receiver.
Okay. I wouldn't hate either of those. I really wouldn't. I think the world of Chase Young. And I don't know what his value is, right? Like, your logic makes sense, Jake. Like, they'd want more than number 12 because they took him at 2. But on the
Khalil
other
Mack went for 2 first-rounders. Like, Chase Young's got to go for more than just 1 first-rounder.
the problem is he just hadn't played.
He's played 12 games in 2 seasons.
Yeah, so it's like, obviously the talent is there, but, teams don't love trading for guys that are super injury-prone, and we're not talking about a guy later in his career who's already shown that he gets hurt. We're talking about a guy early in his career when he's supposed to be at his healthiest that has not shown the ability to consistently stay on the field. So I'd be perfectly fine with either of those guys. I thought the world of Chase Young coming out of college. Like y'all said, when he's on the field, he's a stud. So I would not be opposed at all with Nick Caserio making that call. My preference has been take a wide receiver there. But, man, Chase Young will be tough to pass up. If you ask me what I think is going to happen, I think they're going to end up sticking and picking a defensive player.
Take Nolan Smith, perhaps, from Georgia.
Yeah, either Nolan Smith, Miles Murphy, Lucas Van Ness, like one of those edge players. I think they'll do what they did last year. 2 first-round picks, 1 on offense, 1 on defense. I know some people would like them to double up. If they had hired Shane Steichen or Sean Payton, then I think there's a much better chance of them doubling up. But because of, Caserio's track record and because of D'Amico being the guy, I think they'll end up going 1 offense, 1 defense, and they won't be trading a pick for any player.
It's pretty risky. It'd be averaging out over the next 2 seasons to about $11 million a year that you're spending on Chase Young. But if healthy with D'Amico Ryans, last time this guy played a full season, he was the Defensive Rookie of the Year, and he was a Pro Bowler. Woo! Certainly fun to think about.
Yeah. There's your Nick Bosa in this defense for D'Amico.
Exactly.